Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome once again to Story Hour. I'm your host, Daniel Marcus. My unparalleled co-host is Laura Blackwell, and I hope that you're all healthy and safe and taking care of yourselves and your loved ones in the hopefully waning weeks of the pandemic. This is my first hosting in 2022. I still can't believe that it's 2022. Nobody writes checks anymore because we're in kind of a post-analog regime with financial transactions. But if I did write checks, I'd still be writing 2021.
Oh, that's not true. I still write checks.
Oh, well, some of us do. Old school. My kid is like, what's a check? You know, it's like just and 2022 is like, it's very science fictional. You know, back in like 1992, we thought in 2022 we'd be kind of riding around the post-apocalypse desert with Mel Gibson and Charlize Theron and muscle cars and shooting at rats and eating canned beets, or living in kind of a post-scarcity Disneyland, except for one plucky teenager who writes angst-ridden poetry and rebels against the stifling uniformity of everything. But it doesn't look anything like that. It kind of looks like 2012 and 2002 and 1992, only a little scarier and a little sadder. But here we are, 2022. You know, when I started Story Hour, it was a very scary time. It was early in the pandemic, and I really just wanted a venue for myself and my writers friends to get together and read our work to each other and just sort of share some community. And it just has grown to so much beyond that with the help of my partner in crime, Laura. It's been about 2 years, and so that's around 100 story hours. And if you count repeat authors, it's maybe 150, 170 authors who have come through here, and every single one of them, without exception, has been just exceptional. So I feel just so grateful that I've had the opportunity to make this happen. And thank you all for your support, and thank you for continuing to come back. The idea of Story Hour is very simple, right? I mean, it's basically there's an ancient and time-honored form of entertainment, which is we're sitting around the fire and we're just making shit up and telling each other lies. And that's sort of what we do here in Story Hour. We have 2 authors every week, about 30 minutes each, doing exactly that, telling lies and the truth. And tonight, we're very happy to have Michael Merriam and A.M. Muffaz. So welcome to you both. Each week, we also ask our authors to suggest a worthy cause, which we will shamelessly shill. So if you're fortunate enough to be in a position to help out, that's great. If not, that's fine too. Just be aware that these causes are out there. Michael is reading tonight for Vision Loss Resources, visionlossresources.org. Vision Loss Resources creates a community of service, skills, and support for folks with vision loss. It's visionlossresources.org. A.M. Muffaz is reading tonight for SFSPA, fsspca.org. And it's the San Francisco SPCA, and the mission is to save and protect animals, provide care and treatment, advocate for their welfare, and enhance the human-animal bond. So a couple of great causes. Contribute if you can, be aware if you can't. And let's get started. We're going to start with Michael. Michael Merriam is an author, performer, poet, and playwright living in Hopkins, Minnesota, with his wife and 2 exuberant cats. Like most artists, he's worked a variety of odd jobs over the years, including short order cook, me too, late night radio disc jockey, international freight and shipping specialist, and manager of a puppet troupe. Awesome. His novel, Last Car to Anwin Station, was named a top book by Readings in Lesbian and Bisexual Women's Fiction, and his stories and essays have appeared in Uncanny Magazine, Cast of Wonders, and Andromeda Spaceways in Flight magazine. His scripts have been produced for stage and radio, and Michael has appeared in the Minnesota Fringe Festival, Telebration, Storyfest Minnesota, and over the air on KFAI and Minnesota Public Radio. His website is michaelmerriam.com. So Michael, thank you, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I'm going to read two short pieces today. I decided to go hopeful. So the first piece I'm going to read is called Jenny's Magic. It appeared about 10 years ago in a now defunct children's magazine called Beyond Centauri. It is collected in a short story collection of my own called Shimmers and Shadows. You can just Google me and find it there. And then I'm going to go into another short story called A Hot Cup at the Last Station. And I think I sent Laura a link to that, where if you want to follow along when we get to that, she can post that for us. And that would be great. So without further ado, I'll just get going. So we're going to start with Jenny's Magic. What happened? The little girl asked, staring up at the large orange tomcat. The cat seemed to smile down at her, looming over her where he sat in a tree. He leaned further over, his large green eyes blinking owlishly at her where she lay in the grass. We've struck a deal, the tomcat said. You said, I wish I could understand what cats say. And when I asked if you really would give anything, you sighed and said for a second time. The cat's whiskers twitched in amusement, so I granted your wish. Jenny stood. I can understand you. Yes, the cat agreed, and all it cost was your magic. Jenny stopped the little dance she had begun. My magic? What do you mean, my magic? I meant what I said, the cat replied. He groomed a paw, giving it several licks before turning to look back at her. You won't miss it. But I didn't know. The orange cat swished his tail. It doesn't matter if you knew. A deal is a deal. The cat jumped down from the tree and dashed away. Wait, she cried. You can't just take my magic and leave. She chased the cat, but he slipped through some shrubs and was gone. Jenny sank down in the grass. But I didn't even know I had magic, she whispered. Jenny told her mother the tale of the orange tomcat stealing her magic. Her mother made appropriate noises of sympathy and then shooed Jenny from the room. Her father had been more useful. He told her to find the cat and trick him into giving her magic back. After lunch, she packed a small bottle of orange juice and a dozen graham crackers in a backpack. Satisfied with her provisions, she went in search of the cat who had tricked her. As Jenny walked toward the park, she noticed how the day, which had started out with the promise of bright sunshine, seemed gray. The petunias in her mother's flower bed looked tired and droopy. The dank smell of moldy bread filled her nose and refused to budge. This made Jenny's old mood gloomy as she trudged towards the sidewalk. She began to think it was hopeless. After all, how could she expect to find the cat again? He was probably blocks away by now. He's probably using my magic to make himself invisible, Jenny muttered. Oh no, we don't need human magic to be invisible. We can do that on our own. Jenny looked down at a small calico sitting at the end of the walk leading to an old house. The calico swished her tail slowly. What? Jenny said. Cats can become invisible at will. It's part of our magic, the calico said. How did you know I was talking about another cat? What else is there to talk about? The calico said. You are searching for Grimtooth. Grimtooth? The one who tricked you into giving up your magic. Jenny sat down on the sidewalk. She pulled her juice from the backpack and took a drink. It had a sour, tart taste that surprised her. Jenny scowled at the bottle of juice, then regarded the calico. Can you tell me where to find him? No, but you shall have no trouble if you look properly at the problem. The problem is I've lost my magic, Jenny said. And now you want it back, the calico replied, standing and stretching. But how to find him? Well, if it were my magic, I would call it back to me. It's mine, actually, not actually look for whoever took it. So I should call my magic, Jenny agreed. But it isn't my magic anymore. Isn't it? The calico asked, rubbing against Jenny's leg. Although he tricked you out of it, it's still your magic, from you. Since it's my magic, then I can find it? Jenny seemed to be getting the idea. The tiny calico purred. Very good. She took another sip of the juice and pulled out a stale graham cracker. But to call my magic, I'll need my magic, she exclaimed, and he took it. Jenny's eyes started to water. The calico jumped into her lap. This is no time for tears, kitten. The loss of your magic makes your world seem joyless, but you must use what you have left to find the rest. Jenny stopped sniffling and ran a small hand down the calico's back. You mean I still have some magic? The cat sighed and curled up in her lap, purring. Of course you still have magic. How do you think you can understand the language of cats? To speak to a magical creature, you must use magic. The tiny cat rolled over so Jenny could scratch her stomach. I suppose I will be in trouble for talking to you directly. We have rules about these things. I'm supposed to talk in riddles. Well, thank you, Jenny said. You're welcome, the cat replied, climbing from her lap. Grimtooth should never have tricked you. You're only a kitten. Jenny stood and watched the cat stroll to the house at the end of the walk and start scratching at the door. Her mood much improved, she walked to the park with a lighter step. She found a spot where she had met the orange tomcat, and she considered, if she did find the cat, she needed a way to trick him into giving her magic back. She was worried. Grimtooth was clever. Would she trick him, or would she just make matters worse? Jenny decided to consult her father. You will need to find the cat's weakness, her father said. I'd start with either something you know cats dislike or something cats can't resist. Jenny took his advice to heart. She made a full list of all the things cats hated. She checked her fairy tale books and the encyclopedia. She made a quick trip outside for one item and then returned to her room and sought the second thing she wanted. Jenny placed both objects in her closet before running downstairs for dinner. She lay awake. When she could wait no more, she slipped from her bed and crossed her room. She went to the closet and pulled out the items. She opened her window. Jenny took a handful of fresh catnip and rubbed it along the window sill. She hoped it would help call Grimtooth to her. She had read in one of the stories that the number 3 was magical, and in another that names held power. Combined with her magic, she thought it would be enough to call him. She leaned out the window and whispered, "Thief who stole my magic, Grimtooth, 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 come to me." She watched the darkness for the cat, but all she saw was night and shadows, and all she heard was the rustling of trees. Jenny started to return to bed when 2 glowing eyes appeared on the lawn. Grimtooth? What do you want? The cat hissed. I want my magic back. You gave it up fairly. It is mine now. The cat slunk closer to the window, nose sniffing the air. I didn't give it up. You tricked me, and you didn't even trick me properly. And the story is the victim always has a chance, but I didn't understand what was happening. Grimtooth glared at her, his nose twitching rapidly. It doesn't matter if I did it properly or not. Good night, kitten. The cat turned away, his tail held high. I'll call you again. I'll call you until you give me my magic back, Jenny whispered. The cat spun around and stalked her direction, tail low to the ground in annoyance. That would be very foolish, human child. You should not anger me. I'm not afraid of you. Grimtooth settled under the window and bunched his muscles. You should be. I could sneak into your room as you sleep and draw the breath from your lungs, or claw out your eyes and bite off your tongue. The cat sprang toward her. Jenny reached for the second item and stepped away from the window. Grimtooth landed on her windowsill, his back arched, his fur on end. He crouched and hissed. Jenny raised the water rifle and fired. The startled cat lost his footing and tumbled graciously to the bedroom floor. She stepped over him, put her back against the open window, and blasted him again. Grimtooth dived under her bed. She closed the window, trapping the cat in the room. Jenny knelt down and peered under her bed. A pair of glowing green eyes regarded her. I didn't want to do this, you know. I just want what's mine. I shan't give it back to you, Grimtooth hissed. You would just waste it. You don't even know what you have lost. I know ever since you stole it, everything seems dreary and boring. You took my happiness away. No, I took your magic. I took your sense of wonder. The cat swished his tail. May I come out from under the bed? Okay, she said. I've got the doors and windows closed, so don't even bother trying to get away. Grimtooth crawled from under the bed. He jumped up on it and started grooming. Jenny settled next to him. So you took my sense of wonder. Yes, that is human magic. Humans can be amazed at the world around them. Cats cannot. We have a highly developed sense of mystery, and we are more magical than most creatures, but we cannot experience wonder. A sunrise is a sunrise. One mouse tastes very much like another. It must be terrible to live like that. Humans live without it all the time, Grimtooth said. They allow themselves to believe that things are more important. They pretend to be happy, but they forget what happiness is. I won't forget, Jenny protested. Oh, but you will. Other humans will tell you it's all childish rubbish until you agree. Then you will be just like them. You will grow up, have kittens of your own, spend your days chasing what you think is happiness. Your magic will be wasted. That's why it is best to stop this foolishness and allow me to leave. You're not leaving until I have my magic back. The cat regarded her. I shall set up a noisy ruckus. Your parents will awake and set me free. Grimtooth jumped on the windowsill. Now, be a good kitten and open the window. No. Very well, Grimtooth said. He took a deep breath, preparing to howl at the top of his lungs. If you wake up my parents, I will tell them you bit my hand, Jenny said quickly. I'll act sick and make myself throw up. They'll think you've got rabies. You wouldn't, Grimtooth muttered. She placed her fingernails against her skin and started to squeeze. I'll do it. You're evil, Grimtooth said. I'm 9, Jenny countered. Grimtooth locked his eyes on her. Very well. Jenny started to smile, but a buzzing filled her head, and the world went black. She awoke on the floor of her bedroom. The sun shone through the window, warming her face. She sat up and rubbed her eyes. Grimtooth lay curled up on the bed, watching her. The cat stood, jumped from the bed, walked across the room, leapt to the windowsill. Meow. Jenny stood and walked to the window. She opened it, and the smell of fresh cut grass and morning flowers filled her nose. Grimtooth leapt to the ground below. He turned toward her, hissed, and bounded away. Jenny looked out at the new day and smiled in wonder at its possibilities. So that's a little story. It got reprinted too in a magazine now gone called Hazard Cat. It seemed like a hit, cats, magical cats. So I'm going to read you Hot Cup at the Last Station next. This is my story that I tell people. This is my never give up story. This is my 20-odd rejection story, and then appeared in Bards and Sages Quarterly, which is a nice little semi-pro magazine. Why doesn't he go home? I shrugged and continued to wipe the coffee mug with a towel. I'm asking you, why can't he drink his coffee and go home like a normal customer? I looked up at Vanessa Holcomb. I had hired her 3 months ago. She was the closest thing I had to a friend. He's waiting for someone, that's all. Well, I don't think they're coming, and I need to sweep and put up the chairs before I can leave. She reached behind her head and reassembled her dark brown hair into a short ponytail. Why don't you go on home? I'll clean up in the morning. Vanessa gave the old man a disgruntled glare through her glasses. You shouldn't have to. You're supposed to be off tonight. She turned her fierce gaze on me. What are you doing down here anyway? I remembered it was at the last minute. It was the third Wednesday of the month and came downstairs, knowing the old man would be sitting here, keeping his lonely vigil. But I just shrugged in answer to her question. I just can't seem to stay away. Kenny. I held up a hand to forestall the coming rant. I know, I spend too much time working. I should get out more. Vanessa's nagging should have angered me, but somehow it just made me smile. I suspected it was because she was not one of the college kids I usually hired. Vanessa and I were contemporaries, both of us well on the dark side of 30. Well, you should, she said, wiping down the steamer. You shouldn't spend all your time off working upstairs. I live upstairs. The coffee shop was housed in an old 2-story train depot. I converted the upstairs into an apartment for myself after I bought the building. Well, you shouldn't live down here too. What would I do if I went out? Go have a beer, hit a show, something besides stay home. Get out and meet some people. She finished polishing the steamer to within an inch of its life and started stacking the clean cups behind the counter. I don't drink, and I don't care to sit around watching a bunch of lonely people staring at mediocre bands. Besides, I can meet people right here. She nodded toward the old man, sipping his cold black coffee and idly fingering a rose. You want to end up like him? What about you? I countered. It was unfair, and I knew it. She was a single mother, working 2 part-time jobs to make ends meet. All of her spare time went with her kids. That's different. I'm sorry, that was uncalled for. She scowled as she finished the cups. When she put the last one on the shelf, she turned to me. You're a nice guy, Ken. You shouldn't become grandpa over there. I looked up and caught her eyes. There was something in them I could not identify. It made me uncomfortable. I thought I told you to go home. You did. So why are you still here? Go be with your kids. Vanessa untied her apron. Think I will. She tossed the apron into the laundry hamper and retrieved her purse from the office. I'll see you tomorrow. If you want, you can come in a little late. I'm going to clean up in the morning, so I'll open. She laughed softly. I'll be here at 5:30. Make sure the place is clean and set up. Who's the owner here again? You are, Kenny. You are, she said as she walked out the door. The lock clicked into place behind her and she disappeared into the night. I stacked the chairs and turned off all the lights, except the one over the old man's table. I knew he wouldn't mind. We had engaged in this ritual every third Wednesday since I bought the coffee shop from him 5 years ago. I swept the floor and stocked the small refrigerator under the counter. I checked the clock. It was just past 11. I poured the last of the plain coffee into a cup, walked over to the old man's table, set the cup in front of him, turned away. The old man's raspy voice broke the silence. She's right. You shouldn't end up like me. I turned back to him. I like my life well enough. You have even less of a life than I. This from a man who spent the last 60 years waiting for a woman on a train that will never come. He picked up the rose, rolled the stem between her fingers. He brought a rose with him every third Wednesday. I knew in the morning I would find it left behind on the table, just like all the others. She'll be here, he whispered. Sure. Vanessa likes you. You should ask her out. I don't date my employees. Coward. Make sure the lock is set when you go. Don't I always, he said, as I climbed the stairs to my apartment. Once in my rooms, I felt restless. I pulled down the shoebox of rosebuds from the closet shelf. I had saved the bud off every rose the old man had left. I was not sure why I saved them, but I had 60 of them now. I picked up one and felt the crisp, delicate, dead thing under my fingers. Perhaps I was a coward. But cowards didn't end up sitting alone in a coffee shop waiting for a woman who vanished 6 decades ago. No, the little voice in the back of my mind whispered, cowards end up living out their days hiding in their apartment, mourning a woman who died 8 winters past. I settled down in my chair and closed my eyes, still clutching the shoebox of dead roses. That was the fundamental difference between myself and the old man downstairs. He clung to his irrational belief that a lost love might somehow come back to him. I knew that the love stolen from me by a drunk driver never would. The old man lived in a dream. I knew the truth. 6 feet of dark earth held my heart down. The low rumble was my first intimation something was wrong. My apartment started to tremble, its windows rattling ominously. I grabbed the arms of my chair, spilling the box of rosebuds over my lap and onto the floor. Earthquake, I thought in a panic as the rumble grew in volume. The more sensible part of my mind reminded me that I was not on the West Coast anymore. I'm living in the Midwest, where earthquakes are rare. The room lit up from the outside as if someone were holding a spotlight pointed through my window. The building gave a final shudder as a terrible roaring and hissing filled my ears. There was a rattling of the windows and everything settled. In the silence that followed, I made my way cautiously downstairs, certain there would be broken coffee cups littering the floor and other more severe damage. There was nothing different except the old man in his chair. His eyes were closed. A small smile stretched across his face. The rose listed on the floor under his limp hand. The ambulance and police arrived 10 minutes after I called 911. A month later, on the third Wednesday, I found myself standing over a grave with a simple temporary marker. Clarence Sorensen, I read, kneeling down. I reached into the small insulated bag I had brought and pulled out 2 cups and a thermos. I poured for both of us, setting his cup against the marker. Congratulations, I whispered, raising my cup in the toast. I hope you're both happy, wherever you are. I placed 60 rosebuds on the mound of dirt that covered him. I had to believe that because he had never stopped loving her, even after all those long, lonely years, she had finally come for him. If I can believe that, maybe I'm not such a coward after all. I spent the day walking the streets of my town, coming at last to the depot turned coffee house I called home. I saw the place was empty except for Vanessa, who stood behind the counter cleaning it with a dish rag. I refused to wait 60 years. Hey, I said, walking inside and turning the siphon open to close. You want to knock off early and go get a beer or something? Vanessa gave me a sharp, curious look. I thought you didn't drink. I don't, but I wasn't sure how you'd feel about a cup of coffee, everything considered. She waved her hand dismissively. Coffee's okay, but you're going to have to clean this place up in the morning. That's fine. I turned off all the lights, except for the one over the old man's table, while she retrieved her purse from the office. Where to? Vanessa asked as I locked the door behind us. I smiled what might have been my first genuine smile in 8 years. It doesn't matter. Her arm slipped into mine as we walked to her car. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Those were great. Typically, we just pause a moment to let the stories sort of resonate before we move on to the next ones. But really enjoyed both of those stories. Thanks very much. So, a moment of quiet. Just think about what we've just heard. Onward. Our next author, A.M. Muffaz, is a Malaysian writer based in San Francisco. Her short stories and poetry have appeared in magazines on and offline, including The Dark, Chizine, and Fantasy Magazine. She whiles away her days with a husband who is way too kind, as he is tall, and a food inspector cat who speaks in pirate, as most cats do. Mine certainly did. When not reading obsessively difficult books, she is probably thinking about obsessively difficult things. More about her writing can be found at www.ammuffaz.com. So the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you. I just have one story, so hopefully that won't be too much of a bore. This is set in Australia, where I used to live. So there might be a few words here and there that might seem a bit odd to the American ear, but I'm happy to answer any questions if that does occur. So yeah, without any further ado, this is called The Mouse. The condiment aisle was a rainbow bridge to the wider world, with American ketchup and French mustard lined shoulder to shoulder with Japanese mayo and Mexican green salsa. Among the spicy reds and piquant oranges, glistening in their glass bottles like jewels, it was easy to lose oneself, imagining a flavor for every occasion. Yet even among this dazzling display, there were winners and losers. The last bottle of sriracha from Thailand, a yellow tag emblazoned beneath its white cockerel logo, was quickly snatched up by eager feminine hands, pulled out of view into a rapidly departing basket. Henry thought it might have been the jeans, but people could smell a discount in this place from miles around. Beside him, Etta chose baked beans with an eye on the minute, as if the difference of 10 cents could change the course of history. The pyrotechnics in her hair, the flashing crystal pins, the gloriously purple ringlets, the rhodolite spectacle frames, all of it was frivolous, yet served to pickle, if nothing else, the illusion of her youth. In truth, she had left the womb before the current era, and since that awful day began a rampage through life like no other. Etta had no shopping list. Her recipes were handwritten into her brain. She picked things off shelves like they were piling together a bomb shelter, built on whatever food they could scavenge for cheap. Henry huddled behind his trolley, doing his darndest to stack the tins he was handed. The cracked plastic handle formed a bar with which he steadied himself on random stops along the way. They would have baked beans for breakfast, on toast for lunch, and possibly without sausage for another 7 days. There was no turning your nose at baked beans. Half the world depended on beans as part of a regular, healthy diet. But life was more than beans, and he inwardly railed at how it wasn't spaghetti going for 99 cents a tin that week. They passed the cheese counter with the customary sidetrack for more yellow tags. Camembert marked down for quick sale meant the cheese still tasted like gourmet cheese. It just went bad a little faster. A fridge kept food fresh for weeks post-mortem. In fact, he was sure he had a crumb of cheese on him at that very moment, stuck to a triangle of his sweater. A leftover from breakfast. Tasty, perhaps, or one of those awful cheddars Etta liked. The Manson family did this, you know, he said. They took food from the trash when supermarkets cleared their stock at the end of the week. That's unhygienic. Henry, stop picking at your stain. But it was free. So are germs, and who wants them? Look, take some smelly cheddar. The block of cheese went atop the milk. That was how they stacked. Cold things in one corner, hearty foods in the other. The weight of the cheese toppled the pack of turkey slices underneath, which slid out towards the bottom of the cart. Henry immediately reached down to haul it back. At that instant, Henry perceived the droplet from between the wire mesh. It lay shiny and black on the lightly dusted tile. The droplet was followed by the edge of a pink tail, like a tentacle, really, curled ever so prettily with the body out of view. Whatever it was stood under the cracker shelf and quickly flicked away. Henry, she called. Oh. The aisle stretched on, white tile after white tile, scratched and scarred from crates and wheels. It was hard staying in the revel, hidden behind the display cases. Etta was far ahead, basked in the bluish tint of fluorescent lights. Henry did his best to chug along behind her, mindful of the children, mindful even more of the adults pushing trolleys from opposite directions. It irked him that people thought of traveling in twos and threes. Surely the aisles could only handle so much. At the bakery, the shelves were covered with fresh bread and supermarket cakes, coated with icing to hide their cracks. Henry noticed these things as he waddled after Etta, like how a mouse's trail was left unnoticed in the wake of a growing human crowd. There lay a muffin at the bottom of a cooling rack, politely nibbled at the side. Here sat another wee droplet, dried and shriveled and easily mistaken for a raisin. Etta hung around the door that led to the ovens, pretending not to hang around. This position kept her directly opposite the bargain bin, where custard pecan danishes lingered, waiting for a quick sale. Etta always said it was worth waiting until closing time, when things had to be cleared. Other women pretended they were invisible too, clustering around empty pie cases and last Christmas's mincemeat tarts. There was tension in the air of the bakery, like hens waiting for the farmer's wife to bring them corn. When the first grain dropped, a pecking order would emerge. Henry ducked into a spare lane, just in front of pasta and sauces, while Etta lingered. Supermarkets with bargain bins probably never employed architects. The aisle thinned at the intersection to vegetables and toiletries, and the people who walked it wandered hodgepodge between whatever small spaces they got. It would be impossible to move through there in a pinch, though the more important question for him was how soon he would need to. Cramped in this very public space with him, he saw the mouse for the first time. It stood beneath a pyramid of soda bottles and dust motes on its shoulder and sweat on its fur. What a scary thought, standing beneath the weight of bottles that could topple at the slightest jerk. But the mouse was a risk-taker, an adventurer. Even so, it paused first to stand on its hind legs and listen. No point exploring the human wilds if you were run over in the street the first chance you got. You could practically see the fine veins spread in the creature's radar dish ears. Its whiskers twitch as it calculated the distance to a recently spilled strawberry. The wail of a small child bumped him out of his reverie. A whole family waited behind him, squeezing between his space and an abandoned trolley. His head hung low, Henry ducked again, hoping to relieve what stalled traffic less than 5 feet away. He edged into a narrow passage that led to vegetables and was sucked into its current, where the slow-moving flotsam of weekly shopping took him past shelves he had no time to really see, apart from noting they were bright and shiny. At the first available opportunity, he dove away from the crowd, letting the gap he left close behind him. Before him now lay row after row of sugars, cubed, brown, raw, and artificial, a base product with many faces but only one flavor. Even here, the threat of congestion began to make itself clear. Trolleys stood to the side of this aisle like fat gathered along the path of an artery. When enough people realized how quiet it was in here, they would come, like the clog. What did the mouse think? Where did it go in a world full of people and their people-made lives? Among the housewives, a browsing selection of parents from white-collar enclaves kept watch. They were no more immune to discounts than the common folk, but they kept their noses high. The mouse also knew to keep its nose above ground. He was sure of it. Its prehistoric ancestors depended on sniffing for predators to stay alive, while its children sniffed the detritus of humans for prey. It had been a long wait, but well worth the effort. Here in this warehouse of abundance, the mouse could live well to the end of its days. As he nodded in agreement to the mouse's wisdom, Henry began to worry after his sister. It wasn't like her to quit grabbing things and not return to the cart. He shook the trolley slightly. From between the rows, he could see a widening sausage of people string its way towards vegetables, colliding head-on with a similar string that moved towards dairy. He was afraid to move. Returning into the crowd meant jostling for room, and the trolley had terrible traction besides. It refused to veer left as the luggage increased, causing Henry to lean forward in a position both uncomfortable and unkind. People stared. He was sure of it. Strangers who did not know his position and did not care. He could see their amusement as he passed them. The little man hunched over his trolley, looking very much lost and very much frightened, as the aisle stretched before him, and there was such a smorgasbord of aisles to consider. They stood in neat rows, labeled with big letters overhead. The labels told you what was inside, but not everything you needed to know. Adding to the confusion, entire villages seemed to have chosen this day to shop. The parents formed a shield while the children fell into rank behind them, and the very littlest children stuffed the gaps. Henry edged forward with only the slightest determination, keeping his eyes peeled for Etta and keeping away from the general throng. Where he could, he avoided waiting inside more aisles, lest she miss him while he wandered. And where he found himself walking in circles, the mouse was not far behind. The mouse built its own secret paths. It built cheap and it built fast, out of scraps and broken bones, and worked tirelessly to renovate. I have the sudden urge to kill someone, he said to no one in particular. And no one in particular noticed the thought. I have the sudden urge to kill that woman. And still, there was not even the hurried glance of a concerned stranger to ease his mind. I've no doubt she's at the cashier already. Be just like her not to wait for me. It wasn't past her to leave him at the supermarket, stranded among these other people with better reasons to be here. And I've no doubt she's forgotten I was carrying the milk, too. He took the long way to the deli. There was really no other way to it by that time. The deadlock at dairy made it impossible for anyone to nudge a path across. Henry wished he could drop the trolley and peck himself off, but Etta always feared some fool would reach for her choice of produce, because there were fools who took from carts like the supermarket was theirs. So he rounded the corner that bypassed a special in toilet paper and trudged in line back towards the vegetable section. The vegetables, in their candied polished glory, represented the pinnacle of science and pest control. But their freshness only ever got as far as the farm. Once in their cartons, all produce, even the thick-skinned and thorny, were open to the element of surprise. The mouse knew the element of surprise. It surprised people in spite of itself, making the frightened squeal and the weak violate. The mouse was the only creature whose existence entailed only the highest surprise by anyone who met it. Thus the housewives squealed and the husbands stomped. But the mouse was faster than either of them as it fled, a cherry tomato firmly in its jaws. Henry was less in a hurry, so he lingered a little among these strangely plastic tomatoes in their very elastic packages, always afraid Etta would round the corner and yell. He fell in love with the vegetables of the organic section, their dull gleam and cardboard-wrapped bodies unloved and unfed, nourished only by the purest soil of the purest intentions. They were the children of vegetables, or they looked it, being so much smaller than everyone else. that they were the sweetest of them all. The mouse observed his reverence by nibbling politely on his tomato, taking care to spit out the seeds. Someday, a plant would grow from his waste and theirs, and it would be filled with only the purest of nature's means. Until then, there were only the plastic trees and bargains, waiting for the next nuclear apocalypse. Henry, like the mouse, left the vegetables alone. The war of metal trolleys and half-broken wheels raged on. He had no idea how it began, but here he was again, jammed bumper to bumper with people he didn't know. Almost immediately it was too much. So with great cowardice, he veered to the side for a well-deserved pit stop, hoping somewhere in these faces was an Etta who remembered his name. The mouse gnawed at plastic wrap and brown paper packages glued at the seams. It gnawed wherever bedding could be found to pile its nest and warm its feet, and line its toes with the comforts of home. Home was where Henry wanted to be, not as if, in their usual way, anyone noticed. There were more shelves for toilet paper than there were for cheese, and who could argue with the importance of cheese? A nudge at his back kicked him forward. Moving forward, it crashed him into an empty trolley, which itself inched away into the trolley before that, and the one ahead of it into the one ahead. Henry tried to leave, though there was hardly room to push inwards, never mind out. The lady behind him said, "It's all right, you don't have to." He could only smile as she smiled back and think that there were still good people in the world. She pulled out, just as she promised, and he regained his wiggle room. It was then that Etta returned. "Where did you go?" he asked. "I was over there," she answered, empty-handed. "The Danishes are taking their time. Why don't you wait here?" "I don't want to stand here." He didn't. Not in the middle of traffic at an angle, where already scowling faces had to maneuver around his wheels. He said that a little too loud. People looked. Etta blustered and scowled. He chose a different aisle this time, a new aisle in which to hide. Toiletries was an aisle with few stretch marks. Few children ever ran its floors, and fewer still ever got the chance to try. Human children were just not trained to fight over mouthwash. You couldn't eat what they sold here. What they sold here reeked too much of hospitals, of a mint dropped under the shelves and left there to rot. The treasure of mice, surely, but the takeaway version of disease. Antibacterial wash wasn't acute enough to kill half the germs most commonly present. The danger lay in its promise, believing for an instant the world could be a peg more sanitary. The mouse, nibbling on its own vitamin-rich refuse, failed to see the fascination with germs. The lack of germs, in its humble opinion, was worse than death. A life without the ground beneath its feet. Even on the shelves beside his head, Henry could not avoid prying eyes. The condom girls, drawn as they were brutes to behold. Henry could not imagine more barbaric women, even if the products suited them well. Exotica and Rough Riders though they were, he couldn't read the names without blushing. Etta arrived in the nick of time. Still no Danishes, though she did throw in a loaf of bread. "Are we going?" He saw her glance as he asked, and he knew the answer before she said it. "Soon." It was getting near 5, and the supermarket would have to close eventually, horde or no horde on its premises. Distilled pandemonium gathered as supermarket attendants drew out carts of more cheap pears and potatoes, headed for vegetables. When the boy with the stickers and the red pen finally entered the bakery, Henry could hear the mental cheers. Leaning over his cart, he huffed a little sigh, thanked whatever gods there were who cared about such things. Probably, he thought, like the god of mice. His friend on his journey stared back at him from across the aisle, beneath the shampoos it would never need and the fleas it no doubt cherished as a result. It seemed odd, but in that one moment, the little mouse seemed to reach out with its paw and beckon. Henry squinted, shut his eyes, and reopened them with suspicion. No, he wasn't seeing it wrong. There was indeed a paw extended this way, the tiny, almost human digits curling and uncurling where he could see it. The mouse was watching him with quiet black eyes, differentiated from the shadows by the faint glint where it reflected light. Etta, the human frenzy, remained missing. He turned to look for her and made out just a tip of a purple wig in the mass over the bargain bins. It was true. Neither he nor the mouse belonged here. He cocked his head and pushed the trolley aside. The mouse did a curtsy before it scampered off, no doubt arranging a proper mouse welcome with its fellows further down the line. The space beneath the shelves was now empty, just waiting for him to take charge. Henry squeezed his head into the gap between the floor and the bottom shelf, finding that his skull fit neatly between them. The shoulders were a bit more difficult. But the mouse always found its way, so he would too. The ramming and the wedging made odd noises to his ears. If he couldn't fit, he'd reshape. And soon enough, one shoulder gave, and then the other. The waist pinched itself until the vomit hit the flat of his thumb. His fingers crawled over the tiles until they drew him across by inches. He crawled until his nails snapped and sharpened. There was a small price in cracked bones he wouldn't need, and it seemed the space beneath the shelves looked bigger on the inside than they did from above. The women began to scream. The mouse moved quicker than the people's feet. It scurried across the crowded room, through the wire racks, and past the smell of tomorrow's proofing bread. It didn't stop till it hit the cheese counter, rounding the bend in the blink of an eye. There were no humans fast enough to stop it. Stop, they said nonetheless. Scurry, he thought. Go. And that's the end. I hope everyone could hear me properly there.
Oh, yeah, you were great. I could listen to you read all night. Loved the story and loved your voice as well. Thank you so much. That was a really lovely story. So Michael, Merriam, and Muffaz, another great story hour. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you all out there for joining us again for another story hour. Next week, we have Phoebe Barton and Zin E. Rockland. So that promises to be a good show as well. And until then, stay safe, be kind, and we'll see you soon. Good night, everybody.
Likewise. Good night.
Good
Thank you.
night.